Hello everybody, welcome back to the series Pockets, the art journaling class where we have a pocket journal that we create and we write journaling prompts and answer with the little bits of wisdom hidden in the pockets within ourselves, and then we fill our pocket journal filled with fun ephemera, helping ourselves get to know the inner depths of who we are and what we want and what we love so much about this crazy, messy, beautiful life of ours. Oh, and I've got something falling out already. We finished the fourth pocket last time. If you haven't watched, it was all about community and care and what that means to you, what that means to us. And this time, the prompt was something along the lines of, if you didn't have to worry, like if you could create anything and the little inner critic in your head whispering mean things in your ear was suddenly gone. You didn't have to worry about money. You didn't have to worry about judging yourself or other people judging you. What is it that you would make? I found myself hitting some resistance with this question. I'm not gonna lie. And it happened to also correspond with when my kids started summer vacation. So I just kind of took that as a sign to take a break and sit with it for a while. I did write this little list this morning on this fun colored note card that I have. I have this book, I believe it is from theflyingcat.net, Julia's Patreon. Usually, like, she'll always send like little books or like a lot of different ephemera. Like, I've got a little piece of ephemera right here that was tucked in with that notebook. I've been saving it. Oh yeah, this has instructions for I'm not going to use that as ephemera, then I'm going to save that. So I found myself struggling a little bit with this question because, I mean, theoretically, like, I'm not technically running a business. I would like to just make a living off of being an artist, and between a combination of teaching other people art and inspiring people to follow their creativity and then making my own art. I know that it is kind of a difficult environment to do that in. I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to support myself with this at this point in time. And take a drink of my tea. Grab a cup if you want. I did write a poem that I shared the other day on the feed, and I'm going to read it here. And I printed the images on sticker paper because I realized it's kind of an artist manifesto, and it kind of encapsulates what I want my artistic journey and creative life to represent. So the poem is, I don't have a title for it. It's a manifesto though. I want to make soft things, follow the stitches of things, see the space between, and understand the matter of things. I want to make crinkly paper things, messy paint on hands and pants things. I want scribbled words and pocket notebooks that help us understand the universe of things, so we may weave them together and see the interconnected beingness of things. I want to make things that ask hard questions instead of giving easy answers, less digestible, more discomfort type things. I want to make ideas into solid things, building bricks from verse, the type of hope that could create the foundation of things, get us all working on things, living life with respect to everyone and everything. Remember, we're not the only things, so we can have a world filled with better lives and happy things. If you're paying attention to what's going on in the world right now, and especially if you live in the US like I do, number one, I'm sending love and solidarity to all of you. And number two, I wrote this kind of as a reminder of the role that the artist can play when it comes to, the dissolution of one world and building of a new world. I have been struggling with my role in things, and so writing this kind of like came to me. I was kind of just scrolling on the internet one day, and I like to look at textile artists. I do some slow stitching, like in messy, scrappy stitching, and I would not call it quilting. But I just work with scraps, and I like to sew, and it's very meditative. And I used to be a doll maker. That's something I would like to get back into at some point. I used to crochet dolls. I do think that I could manage to sew a doll now, although it would be messy and imperfect. I wouldn't want to follow like a certain pattern to make like the perfect doll, because I like the wonky ones, the ones that look different and unique and have a personality all of their own. Much like all of the creative things that I make and the things that I do, I like them to be wonky. I like them to be messy and done out of curiosity instead of perfectionism. And I think that's like one of the key elements in my creative practice, is just like, can I take some tools and play and make something? And it never turns out as the vision in my head, and it certainly doesn't turn out as the vision of like the things other people make, especially like people who are professional or people who've been like sewing their entire lives. I'm not going to sew a doll or sew something that's going to match the expertise of somebody who has the lived experience of doing that for a long time. But I can make something that is unique to me, and I can make something that is special to me. And I do think that that's important. I think that not enough emphasis is put on just doing the thing. I don't think I can cuss on here, but it says like effing around and finding out. Like, that's kind of been my philosophy when it comes to creativity. I've taken I've taken a few online courses, and I've done some things to try to like learn, and that's fun. And it always expands my wealth of knowledge, as well as just giving me another creative outlet. But at the end of the day, like, just sitting down and like figuring it out, like this little zine that I made for one of our pockets with this little ring that's messy, and it always is like kind of slipping out of my pocket journal, but like I'm not carrying this around, and it's just going to be a little keepsake. It's going to be one of the ones that I end up saving in my I have a big chest for my grandmother that I've been stashing the journals, art journals and written journals that I want to save for my kids to someday have, because I think it would be special for them to be able to go through that and just see kind of who I was during this time of their life, outside of how they perceive me now. I think that's like a special thing that I can provide them. I bought these neon note cards from Walmart. I am still offering I still have some of my cards left. I offered to send them off to people. If you want one, you can DM me on Instagram your address. I would love to do a trade. You can always like leave me a tip on Ko-Fi, or you know, if that's not doable for you, you can just DM me your information and I'll send you one. I'm going to continue making these. They're very special to me, the collage cards that I make. And I'm going to continue including some in my little pocket journal here. I don't know what my printer's doing. It's thinking about doing things. There we go. That's the beginning of it. So, just be aware that I'm really bad at stickers. I can't use the tweezers, and it's terrible, but I still bite my fingernails. I have anxiety, especially like social anxiety, just being in public spaces, being like the idea of being perceived, like in person makes me feel very uncomfortable. So I bite my nails a lot. I fidget, and that's like one of the habits that I have yet to fully break free from. So what I'm doing is I'm putting stickers on these little cards. Neon, like lime green was my favorite color as a kid. My nail polish is coming off now, but me and my daughter went to a thrift shop and I found this iridescent, like bright green nail polish, and me and my daughter and my son had matching nails for a while, that were bright and colorful and fun, and I thought that was a really like cool bonding experience. My daughter is super into like, she's 5, super into like makeup and wanting to do all the girly stuff, which, we're not quite there yet. But we can paint nails, we can, play around with it. I did create a new sticker. I don't know if I shared this last time or not. I don't remember. It's been a while. But I've been creating stickers here and there when I make a design that I'm really excited about. And I did a collage that I really thought would make a great sticker, but I'm worried about spending, it's like $20 to buy a pack of stickers. Yeah, I think the last one I made was the gray snail, which has not sold any. I also include them in caramel, and I include them as freebies in my orders. But it's one of those things, like at a certain point I have to decide to stop investing money in something if it's just going to sit at my desk. As always, an experiment in caring is caramel, and I always invite people to sign up. It is very low cost of entry. It is pay what you wish starting at $1. And if all you can pay is $1, that's totally fine. It helps cover a little bit of the material. It helps to cover the postage. If you are somebody who's international, I ask that you pay a little bit more just because of the fact that, postage for international mail is a little bit more expensive, but do what you can. And this is one of the things that I feel like I can do. So I've got these note cards that has my poem on it. And I absolutely love that because I think that it's important. Another thing that I wanted to include in this pocket this is the prototype for one of the comics that I made that is on my Instagram feed. Basically, like showcasing how even though there are some in the Christian religion who preach hate and who preach that we are all sinners and that there is something wrong, like innately wrong with us, and that we have to beg for forgiveness, that is not what Jesus taught. He taught love and forgiveness and compassion. I I ended up going in a different direction for that comic, but one of the things that I want to spend my time doing as a creative is making comics. I shared one yesterday that's a little bit more political, but I happen to have this one on a note card already because that's what I had available to draw it when I had the idea. So that's what I decided to use. And then we are going to choose one of my collage cards at random to represent our creative dreams. Scattered. This feels on brand for me. You know, I have ADHD and I have a lot of different interests. I love dancing and I love painting and I love collaging and I love drawing and I love writing and I love doing all the, crocheting and knitting and sewing and stitching, and I love all these different things so much. And so scattered for my creative dreams, I feel like that is adequate. That is a good example. So on the envelope, I'm gonna It used to bother me when I would do lettering and it wouldn't, like, I would run out of space or it wouldn't look right or I would make like one little mistake, and I'm trying to embrace the fact that it doesn't really matter. Okay, let that dry for a minute. So the other thing I have is this little book from Julia's Happy Mail, and I thought that I would just like glue some scraps into it and make little scrappy fun collage pages, or even just like write like little inspirational words. I get lots of little scraps that it's hard to like actually do something with in an actual collage without it getting overwhelmed, but filling in like little tiny books is actually a great way, and like making interesting shapes and doing interesting things with them is a good and like way to play with shapes and patterns and just kind of challenge your creativity a little bit more. It is also one of those low energy art forms that I am able to do on days when the sadness is winning, when like my arms are really heavy with depression and everything feels kind of pointless and I can't really find, like, I can't get myself started. This really helps. I have several books, traveler's passport notebooks and little pocket notebooks and little handmade books filled with just little minimalist scrap collages. And sometimes they end up being some of my favorite pieces. And I think part of that has to do with like the idea that when we impose a limit on our creativity, it actually requires us to be more creative in how we use our like space and materials. And when we have access to like unlimited everything, it actually can be harder for us because like it can be difficult to know where to start and how to proceed and not feel overwhelmed just by choices. I also disassembled some of my old art cards that I did, Oracle art cards. So I do have a lot of scraps right now. For those who don't know, I used to do like I offered personal Oracle art readings, but I also did like weekly ones on my Substack where I would make a talisman that just kind of like embodied the energy of that week and the reading that I had done for that week. And there were journal prompts attached to the Substack post. And then for whoever wanted it, they had the option to buy the original art or download a copy of the card and like print it out themselves. And I think that it's a practice that I miss a little bit, but for a while, I ended up lowering the cost of it to $11, which is something I don't always mind doing. I do it when I feel like I have the capacity for that, but it is like, especially the individual readings, you get a little zine with your reading, with the cards that I pulled and the reading and affirmations and journal prompts. And then I create a personalized piece of artwork that corresponds to your reading that you can meditate on. And then I send you a picture of that and include and tell you to like meditate on that while you wait for your reading to arrive in the mail. So before you even know like what the reading is, you just have the art to meditate on and journal on, which I feel gives us, it's a good intuitive exercise and challenge. And it's just one of those things. I think that my inner critic got in my head and was like, no one's going to pay for this. Times are really rough right now. So I lowered the cost for a while I could. And then, you know, life got busy and it didn't feel good to be selling that at only $11. Because it should be, with all that you get from it, it should, in my opinion, be like closer to $50. If that's something you guys would ever be interested in me bringing back, I would be happy to do so. I could also do the weekly talisman ones for the Substack again, which, you know, just kind of like gives like an energy reading for that week. And, you know, I make a piece of artwork that embodies that energy that can be printed out for your journal. And like I said, people can buy the original artwork. Most of my original artwork is for sale unless I end up taking it apart or ripping it up. But maybe I'll start doing that again. I don't know. See, that's the thing. I have a lot of ideas of how I want to like do creative things, but I also struggle. So this is kind of, I'm gonna vulnerable for a minute. Like, being a creative person who could support myself with my creativity, like as my job, is the dream. I think it's the dream that a lot of people who are creative hold. And I spent a lot of time growing up wanting to be a writer and being told that like just being a writer and just like, cause I wanted to write novels, like, and that was not an easy way to make a living. And now if you talk to most writers, I don't think that you can even make a living just writing books. Unless you happen to be somebody who writes like instant bestsellers. And so I kind of just like tucked that dream away for a long time, and I'm not interested in making more money than I need, but over the years since I left my job in logistics, it's become clear to me that like entering the workforce is not something that's ever going to help my mental health. And I have fear. There's a lot of fear involved in this, of like the fact that I'm so dependent on other people, and that, you know, that just makes me feel like I'm in a vulnerable position. And so I always think like, if I could just, you know, teach art or share my creative work and make money from it, like that would at least give me a little bit of reassurance that, you know, if anything, and if any of my circumstances were to change, you know, my entire world wouldn't come crashing down, which would be bad for my kids and would be bad for my mental health. Would be bad for the whole family. And then there's the whole capitalist side of it, where it's like, I would love to live outside of a system where we have to like beg other people to see value in the things that we make and the gifts that we offer with our creativity. Because I think that, well, number one, I think that's part of why so many people give up creative work. And number two, just like, who wants to live in the kind of world where like you're not allowed, like you're discouraged from making art and only encouraged to like go learn the bare basics so you can work in an office? Do you know how depressing it was when I finally got my college degree after years of struggling with it? I kept being told, and it like the messaging with it was that this piece of paper was going to make all the difference between me actually making like a sustainable living. You know, I come from probably lower middle class. And so like a college degree was like the end all be all way of, you know, changing your circumstances. I finally get my degree. I finished my classes for general studies because I could never quite make up my mind. I was originally going for journalism, and I'm not even qualified with my degree to be, like, I'm barely qualified to be a secretary. I would actually be making less money now. This is not even counting inflation, but I would be making less money now going into the field with my experience and with my degree than I would have where I was before I left the workforce. Part of that has to do with the fact that people aren't, that businesses, they wouldn't say this, but it's hard to re-enter the workforce after you've been away. If you take time off and there's a gap in your resume because you decided to raise a family, or it became clear that your salary was just going to cover the cost of childcare, if that, and only lead to more stress for everybody and more running around and problems when you could just be the one who stayed home and like took care of your kid yourself. I don't know. As you can tell, I have a lot of emotions about that. like even my voice is starting to shake talking about it, because like it feels like the world doesn't take stay-at-home caregivers seriously at all. I'm fortunate that my husband does see and respect the fact that it is a job. It is something that, you know, takes a toll on people and requires full attention and full skill, but I'm very lucky, and I know that that is worthy of some gratitude. But at the same time, the way society doesn't show, not even like, I don't want to say like a lack of respect, it's just like, it's not seen as work. It's seen as less than. It's seen, you know, it's all the side things that we do on the side that don't seem to be important. But like when it's somebody's entire world and you don't get to leave the house very often other than to like go do aspects of that job, like going to the grocery store, taking kids to doctor's appointments, taking kids to summer camps, and you're the one who knows all of the things, you know, all of the favorite meals at home, and when you choose to go out to eat, which is barely even affordable now. It's a lot, honestly. And I do think that the system is built to kind of like break us with this mentality that like women, you know, stay-at-home moms, there was always a narrative where stay-at-home moms and working moms were pitted against each other. And I don't really believe in, like, I don't think that that's worthy of any energy or time, because I think that everybody has to work in the circumstances that they are in. And I can say with total confidence that being a stay-at-home mom and taking the time to be at home, and even though it was stressful and is hard, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. It also gave me the space that I needed to focus on some of my healing that needed to happen without, you know, having to go and mask and perform at a job every day. I mean, imagine trying to, like, a lot of this has been self-healing. Imagine going through some of like your traumatic experiences and having revelations about why things are certain ways in your life, and then having to like get dressed and go to a job, which I know a lot of people have to do. I don't think that that's something I had the capacity for. And so, as I said, in a lot of ways, I'm very lucky that I had this time. I did try to apply for some jobs recently, and that led to several panic attacks. Because like all of the jobs that are available, number one, we live in the middle of nowhere, so we're talking like almost an hour commute one way. And then, you know, lower salary than I made before. And then you have to consider inflation. And then you have to consider childcare. And then you have to consider like all of the times that I'm, you know, we would have to try to figure out how to get, you know, my daughter to her ENT appointment, or how to get my son to like a therapy appointment. It just, like, parents are not set up for success. And especially if you try to be a working mom. I admire anybody who does that. I recognized that I don't think that I could have been as present of a parent, and I don't think that I could have gone through all the healing that I've gone through and also have been as present as I need to be for my kids. So all of that rambling aside, basically, I think part of the reason that I've always kind of like had my hand in the side hustle world is just because it felt like that was, I don't know, a safety net, a little bit of security. The job market is way more competitive now, and the jobs are not, from what I can tell, like the benefits, at least around here, the benefits aren't as good, and the jobs are harder and they pay less. And so, I think I've been grieving a little bit. I've always had, got my first job when I was 16, and I've pretty much worked steadily since then. There were times during college when I held like part-time student jobs. I side hustled on eBay for pocket money. But I've always held a job. And I've always been a good worker. That was always like one of the things that I excelled at. And coming to the realization as somebody who is bipolar, who has ADHD, who needs a certain routine and predictability to their lives, I don't know. Like I said, I think at this point, I'm just really grateful to be where I am today, because, and then there's the social anxiety. Like, I can barely go be around groups of people anymore. It's very difficult. I'm trying to think about how to put together like an art project for our local park that like the kids can participate in, and just the idea of being around so many people is scary. I thought about putting myself out there to teach some like local art classes, or, at the library or something. And I don't know that I'm ready for that. But, a few years ago, I didn't think that I would be ready to be sitting here talking on YouTube about some of my bigger fears and discomforts. So I guess we all grow and change, and there's no way to see where I'm going to be like a year or two from now. So I think now that we are journaling our creative dreams, I think the next step is, as I have babbled relentlessly during the filming of this video about all of my concerns and worries, what are your fears? Let's fill the next pocket with all of our fears and worries and discomforts. What are the things that keep you stuck? What makes you feel like you can't possibly do anything, and makes it so that it's hard to even function. We might call these creative blockages. Fear of being seen, fear of being perceived, fear of being rejected, fear of no stability. Write it out, journal about it, and then maybe I will lead you in a special project with that to fill the next pocket. I think that might be a good one, because there's a lot of things in the world to be worried about right now, and to allow ourselves to just sink into the realm of fear and rumination. And I think if we can name it and we can interact with it in a way that's more loving and non-judgmental, that perhaps we can, perhaps it can end up being less scary. So this is just a little book of minimalist collage, which is another thing that I would spend so much time doing as a part of my creative practice. It's one of my favorite forms of expression. I love the shapes and patterns that arise. I love the way a lot of this is like old artwork that I ripped up, and I love the way like the ripped paper and like the peeled away paper leaves behind remnants of what it was before. I am in the process of, I figured out how to print booklet style on my printer. So I am in the process of formatting my poetry chapbook to publish it as a zine. And then I would like to publish a book of just collage, I think. Zine, not book. I think that that could be really powerful for me. Having the printer and being able to print it out here makes it way more accessible and easier for me, and it's like way less cost up front. It's part of the reason that I stopped, is that like I could only get to the copy shop like so many times, and you know, I had to take my kids with me. They didn't like going. It seemed like we always ran into issues with the copiers, and then it ended up being expensive on top of that. And so I feel better about creating zines now. So I think I'm going to do a combination. Like there will be some art zines, there will be some written zines, there will be a combination of the two. And that's kind of what I'm working on next. I wrote a chapbook and I submitted it for a contest, and it did not win. But I'm still really proud of the poetry that I wrote for that book. And so I'm going to put it out there. I know that my creative path doesn't have to follow the formula that other people have used for success. And I also just really freaking love zines. Like, I don't know about y'all, but it's fun. It's a fun medium to work in. There we go. So let's slide this into the pocket, and I think one last thing would be pulling a tarot card from our Tarot for All Ages deck. I'm going to shuffle off screen because my desk is getting a little bit messy, and I'm not great at shuffling. That didn't work. I have one deck that I use for most of my readings. That's the Luna Soul Tarot deck. And the cards feel perfect in my hands. They're the only ones that I'm able to actually properly shuffle. The Five of Cups. So I see a snake coming to perhaps claim these two cups that are still standing. I see water pouring forth from these three cups that have spilled. It gives me the sense of like not clinging, not holding on to things, maybe not holding on to dreams that are not serving us, not allowing our emotions to control the narrative. the snake could either be an ally or somebody that doesn't want us to succeed. Here we go. This card depicts an instance involving regret or loss. Perhaps there's been a missed opportunity. While it's easy to focus on what is gone, shift your sights to the present moment and notice which of your cups are still full. If you are distracted by longing for something that has passed, something right in front of you might go undiscovered. I think this is a good companion card for our Creative Dreams pocket, because it focuses on, you know, we can talk about all of the things that we want to do, and that's great. But we also, there's like what's the saying? There's a saying that a lot of people say specifically about men in like dating, which is like, if he wanted to, he would do it. So like the idea is like, if he wanted to date you, if he wanted to spend time with you, he would make the effort to actually do that, right? And I think this is a card that's maybe calling us out a little bit. It says, if you want to do something, then you can do it. And sitting here and thinking about all of the things that have passed and all the ways that you've let opportunities go, or that opportunities didn't fit, or opportunities weren't granted to you, we can maybe reframe that as an opportunity to allow new things to come through us and to transmute what we've been working on into something different. You know, there's a lot of ways that my practice has transformed since it began in 2019.
This is a reminder.
Sorry, that was my reminder for the day. So that is another thing to think about, especially as we head into our fears. Like, what old dreams are we holding on to that maybe we need to let go of, that aren't serving us, that are keeping us from working on new things, that are keeping us from doing this. And one example for me is like this idea of the chapbook. I wanted to have my own poetry book since I can remember, and I feel the pangs of jealousy. Even though it's never a single creator that I would like be jealous of and think they don't deserve it. It's just like, they're going after it. They're doing the thing. I want to do the thing. And it's like, okay, so I wrote a small chapbook. I submitted it to one contest and then I tucked it away and it didn't get chosen. And I kind of was just like, all right, well, that's it. And it's like, no, I'm going to self-publish it because I'm a zinester and that's what makes sense for me. My path does not have to match the path of other people. And, you know, I think one of the things that is really powerful for me as a creative is the final act of releasing work into the world is like an important step for my creative process. So there we have it. That's our Creative Dreams pocket. Tag me if you end up doing that, or leave comments below with any questions. Oops, sorry, I think I just hit the camera. And we will get together next time to make a pocket to contain all of our worries and fears. All right, y'all, I hope you have a good day. I hope that you stay safe if you are protesting this weekend. And I hope that we all learn to love each other better. Have a good day. Bye.